Dawn of the Dead, to Miss Gaylen Ross, to Mr. Ken Foree, Mr. Reiniger. You answer questions. So, I have first question from the audience, I have to translate. It's now nearly 35 years since what? Nearly 35 years since the movie was shown. So, what do you think, comparing to modern zombie movies, why is Dawn of the Dead still so popular? And how did you see, comparing with the 78 movie, other zombie movies that are done today?
Hello. Well, that's kind of a hard question, but when you're making a film like that, you don't have any idea what is going to happen in terms of the future. But I'll tell you what I hear from people who are fans of the movie is that, along with the gore and all of that business and the zombies, is that they appreciate the relationships between the key four characters in the film and the situation that they're in. And I hear people speak about that over and over, so I think that a bit sets it apart, but also because of George Romero's humor, right? He has his own way of thinking about things, as you well know. And you want to say something?
Did you want to translate that, or did everyone understand? Whoa. Did everyone understand? Yeah. And the question was the difference between the films of today as opposed to the film that we shot in 1978. Well, the first thing is budget. Second, I think CGI, we got a lot of that, that they're using. I just think that when George did, I'm in a little trouble with this thing, I don't know. When George did Night of the Living Dead in '68, I don't think that there were many people who had experienced that kind of gore and violence and carnage. And then he did Dawn of the Dead 10 years later, and that was in color. And so, and that kind of set these, I think it was a watershed for many films to follow after. So people started doing, he did Day of the Dead, and I think zombie films began to, get that. Zombie films begin to really take off in terms of people doing them either low budget, ultra low budget. Some people in their, it's in and out, I don't know it. So people started to do them in their backyards, in their basements, $5,000 budgets, $10,000 budgets. It's okay, I got a big box. So it evolved. So you had major productions. Now, in fact, I was at the American Film Market, and it's called the AFM, American Film Market in Santa Monica, about 5 years ago. I go almost every year. And the buyers and sellers were saying that zombie films are finished. So, no one wants to buy them, no one wants to, they're not going to make them, not going to invest in them. And lo and behold, Zombieland came out, The Walking Dead came out, and now every few days or every week I hear some reference to zombies, either in a commercial or something on the radio, television. There's always a reference to zombies. So zombies are back, and they're back big. And I think you can attribute that to, first of all, Romero fine film that it is. And I think that influenced many of you probably in the audience and many people around the world to invest in zombie films, to want to make zombie films. I can't tell you how many people tell me at conventions all over the world and on sets that I go to and I work and I shoot films, they just finished making a film. And I'll ask them, what film was that? And what was it about? A zombie film. And I literally, it's thousands. So that, from Night of the Living Dead until today, Night of the Dead, the remake, all of that, all the major productions, and then you have all of those people who are like you, and some of you are filmmakers, some of you want to make films, some of you have made films, and some of you, and all of you, of course, find the films. I think from that we have this, I guess, this flood of zombie films being made, and I don't know. I just think he opened the floodgates and everyone's making them now. And truly, I have heard that many people that they make it, and they're not large budget. You know, $5,000, $20,000, $50,000, but everybody's making a zombie film. It seems that they're making zombie films more than they are vampire films, more than they are any other character. It's a zombie film. That's, I think it answers the question. Is that okay for you guys?
Yep.
Good.
So, can you tell us how you three got involved in the Dawn of the Dead movie? In the first place.
Well, I auditioned. I didn't know who George Romero was. I never saw Night of the Living Dead. I didn't know anything about zombies. I didn't know anything about people eating people. So I was just auditioning for a film. And then when I got it, George had us all over to watch Night of the Living Dead with popcorn. And then I saw what we were going to be doing. It was very surprising, but it was a complete, just an audition. Who would know 35 years later that we would be sitting here today in front of you?
So I also was in New York, and I was asked to audition for the film by Christine Forrest, who then was George's girlfriend. And I knew who he was and whatnot. And then I got the script and I read it and I went, oh my God, this is disgusting, right? And then I met George and I had my first audition and he kind of nodded at me and smiled. He said, that was really good, thanks. But there was a but behind his voice. I didn't say anything then. So then I came back to the second audition and he said, you know, I really like what you're doing. There was this but behind his voice. He says, I have this other actor I'm going to cast who's twice your size. He actually said that to me. And I said, George, the audience is not going to give a shit about that after the first 5 minutes. And they laughed. And I was not what he actually pictured for the role in his head originally. He told me that. So I just had a different take on it. So that's what happened.
I was in a activist group, theater group in New York, in Bottrop, and Dwayne Jones was part of that group. And I was walking down 125th Street. I don't know if you know New York, heard of Harlem. I'll let it go with that. And there was a movie theater there, and lo and behold, there was Night of the Living Dead with Dwayne's picture everywhere. So I looked up and I said, oh my God, it's Dwayne. And I ran down the street, we were about 3 blocks down, and I ran up to our studios where we had this activist theater group. This is in 68, so you know what the political climate was like. And I said, Dwayne, you're in a film. There's a film. What's this film? What are you doing? And he kind of went, shh. So strange reaction. So that's how I knew about the film, and then I saw the film and really was impressed by it, the black and white. And I think the scene that I really liked the most was the one where they dug into the burnt out car and dug into the guts and started to eat. I love that. So years later, I'm doing off-Broadway. I'm doing a stage play called Uncle Tom's Cabin. First and second time it's been done in the history of that piece. And one of the actors we're making up in the back, getting ready to go on. And he said, "Hey Kim, they're looking for someone for this film, and the character sounds like someone that fits your size and your look. And why don't you go see him?" And I said, "Okay, sounds okay. I'll go to Midtown. I'll go to the Village, and I'll go to Midtown. And I'll take this meeting." So I went up, and I walked into the office. I met with George, and as I'm going down the hallway, I see a poster for Night of the Living Dead on the wall, framed. A Eraserhead is framed, and I'm not really stupid, but I'm not the smartest, light in the, not the brightest light in the room. You know what I mean? So it didn't quite, no pun intended, dawn on me that this is Dwayne's film, and this is Eraserhead. These are the people who made it. I'm just walking through. I'm an off-Broadway actor. I'm going to do. I had a guest star in a series, one guest star role, and then I had a role in a major motion picture called Bingo Hall and Traveling All-Stars and Motor Kings from Universal Pictures. And I was doing my stage stuff, so it was a lark. I was going in to audition. So I go in, I audition with Scott, Gaylen, and David. They call me back about a week later or less, and they have me audition with 3 other actors. And then they call me back again. And I think we auditioned again, or they told me we haven't. I'm not quite sure. They maybe we auditioned again with Scott, David, and I. That was it. That's how I got the job. And it took me a minute to realize that I am working and playing a character similar in some ways to my friend Dwayne Jones, who, so it's kind of like, wow, look what's happening. I know this guy. He's one of the first African-American leads to have a lead. I mean, there were several, Sidney Poitier, of course, and there's oh my God, wait a minute, there's a guy, Antonio Fargas. Does anyone know Antonio Fargas? Have you ever heard of him? Antonio Fargas. He's an actor, he's an African-American actor in New York City, and he was one of the first African-American actors that I saw that was a lead in a black and white film, and this was back in those days, in the early 60s. So, I mean, there weren't many. And so with Dwayne and everyone, I mean, I think everyone in this audience who saw Night of the Living Dead wanted Dwayne Jones to live. And I think that when they found out at the end when he shot through the head, I think the entire world took a sigh of regret that he didn't live, So for me to come back and to make it and to be a part of this film was eventually when that light flashed in my head, finally the dummy. It was a great experience, and that's how I got casted. It's been a big ride ever since, a glorious ride ever since, especially because you're here, guys. All right? That answers the question? Yes.
Hi. I'm sure you guys have heard about the bath salt incident a couple of months ago. No, you haven't? A guy was high on bath salts and ate another guy's face.
Oh yes, yes I did. Yeah.
You didn't hear about that?
I heard about cannibalism. Yes, cannibalism. Yes.
Because I mean,
it's crazy.
It's not a film. No, I know what it is. It's not a film. It's psychotic behavior. That it's not funny and it's not crazy. It's sad.
Well, what can you say about that except another reference, as I said before, to cannibalism, zombieism, somebody eating flesh, and I hear these things. I don't know if it's Walking Dead. I don't know if it's because there are thousands upon thousands of people making small zombie films all over the world, but people are, there's something called, well, that's, of course,
Psychotic.
we know it's psychotic, of course, but I'm not.
It's not.
No. It is another reference to somebody doing something, eating someone's flesh, no matter what. And I guess because Walking Dead and some of the zombie films are so popular that they attribute, we have somebody biting off somebody's ear or biting into someone's flesh, and everyone's saying, oh, wow. It gets even more publicity because there's so much, especially with the hit series of Walking Dead and with all the references to zombies. My point. So, anybody else?
So a question to all three of you. From your personal point of view, what were your most difficult scene to film during the production of Dawn of the Dead?
Most difficult? I think, well, it wasn't difficult, but it made me nervous. It was driving that Volkswagen inside the mall. That was a little uncomfortable, even though it really wasn't going that fast. This wasn't my most difficult moment, but one of my most fun moments, you want to know that? Was sliding down the center of the escalator. Because that wasn't planned, it was a spontaneous thing that happened, and I made a suggestion, and George said, okay. So, you have to?
I think the most difficult scene is the scene you didn't see, which is where I die at the end. So nobody saw that, right? No, that took a long time. It was at night and it was snowing. And George had this fake head so that the helicopter was supposed to decapitate me. And it took a long time. And I decided to kill myself and put my head in the helicopter. And George thought it was too sad, or the effect didn't work. I'm not really sure, but I lived instead at the end. And the other one was when the set came on fire. Do you remember that? We were all in the mall, and we were in a fake set in the mall, and I started to smell smoke, and somebody smelled smoke, and we realized the whole set was probably on fire, and George is just sitting there very calm, and we're panicking, trying to get out, and the fire got put out, that's filled with smoke, and George is sitting there. He was George, but that was a moment.
I can add one thing. Difficult moments for, Tom Savini is, right? Well, no, but when he rode his motorcycle through, what was it, a glass wall? Is that what that was? Do you remember that? Yeah. And the first time he did it, the wall didn't break, and he had to do it, and he bounced off it. Yeah.
I have two. The first one was in the project where we went downstairs and we opened the door and we saw all of the corpses and the people beating on each other. It was very, very real and disturbing. And that was a difficult scene to watch, even being there, even though we know it's made up, even though we saw some of the special effects being put together. When I walked in that door, it really affected me. I think the other one, which is more funny than it wasn't difficult, but it's kind of, I think Gaylen will get a kick out of this one. We were on the roof, and she was flying the helicopter, and we're making our escape, Gaylen and I. And so you know, I'm waving the helicopter down, and I grab the rudder, and, you know, the helicopter's up, it's flying away. And I'm grabbing it and pulling it down, and the pilot is pulling, because, you know, I'm about to pull the helicopter down, but we'll decapitate all of us and crash. So, yeah. So, you know, I think that, and there's another thing I like to throw in there. It was so fucking cold in Pittsburgh at that time. It was snow, cold. I mean, the weather changed one night. I tell you, and Scott and Gaylen can attest to this. We were snowed in one night, and I asked the producer, and it snowed, and it was snowing all the time, and it was cold, so what? But this night it really snowed very heavy, and lunch got late, you know. I'm really real hungry. I'm tired of eating cookies and coffee. So I said, Richard, you know, what's lunch? Richard said, we're snowed in, you're eating lunch. So that's all we had. And I remember the cold. I remember the cold in the projects. That was the first time we really experienced the cold. I think we had those heaters. And I remember the cold out in the mall parking lot. And the guy, he just died, by the way. The guy that had the swimming suit on and nothing else. He just died. He died this past year. Well, this guy was turning blue, and he was falling into a fountain out there, and it was freezing cold. And even when we moved the trucks, it was cold, except we're in the mall. And those were the kind of difficult. You know, it wasn't difficult because we were all very young. I mean, you know, at one point George asked me, he said, at that point, we want you to run, take a dive, turn 3 times, and then shoot civilians. I said, okay, no problem. So I ran, hit the concrete, made 3 turns, and shot civilians. Now, if you would ask me to do that today on a film set, I'd say, where's my stunt man? And I'm not moving. So that, yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry, I went on for too long.
I've got a top question for you. First one is, when you play the characters, how much of yourself did you bring to that character? In other words, how much of yourself crossed over? Are you completely different? Or are you quite similar to those characters? I'm curious. And the second part of my question was, when the film was released, each one of you had an experience, both the positive and negative. What was your experience of the movie on release?
Okay, let's see. In terms of being, am I like that character? No, I'm not. But I'm a fairly precise person. So my take on the character was that he was ex-military, and the only life's work he could do would be police work, and particularly SWAT work, because he likes to live on the edge, because he doesn't experience any adrenaline otherwise. Right? So, but he's a very high-wired person who thinks he can handle any situation. This was my approach to it. And then once he realizes he can't handle it, he starts to fall apart and unravel, basically. About when the film opened, well, I'll put it this way. My grandmother wanted to go to the opening. I told her, do not come. I don't want you to come. And she said, no, dear, I want to go. And I want to sit next to you. I went, no. And then when they blew off the head, right, she said, dear, I think I have to leave now. As far as the opening was, I didn't know, I knew the film would be received in an unusual way, I could sense that, but I didn't know what the reaction would be, if it would help my career or not. But the interesting thing about the film is when you read the script, you don't really see the humor in the story. When we started shooting it, I started to see, oh, I see what's going here. There's a lot of satire happening.
always, you know, it's kind of like, I got such a big voice as it is. Would you rather I use this or my own voice? Use this? I'm sorry, guys. If it helps you, I'll certainly use this. Well, let me back it up a little bit. Wait a minute. About my character and the really. Oh, God. You know, when I read the script, as Scott just explained a few minutes ago, I thought this film would never play Guam. I didn't think it would make South America. I didn't think America would let it in. I thought the censors would not let this film in. There was so much carnage and gore in this film, and it was all in color. And I said, oh no. I said, and as a matter of fact, I was a member of the Screen Actors Guild, and I was the only, you know, I was the only one that was a member of the Screen Actors Guild at the time, and I legally, because I was a member of the union, I couldn't do this film. So I looked at the script and I said, this will never play the United States. I'm good, I'm gonna do this film. I was bartending, and between acting and off Broadway, I needed a job. So I said, I'm gonna do this film because they'll never spot this. Well, it became so popular, and I think that you have to give credit to Richard Rubenstein, you have to give it to Salah Hassan, who was the distributor. They got this film at every movie house. We opened in New York at the Embassy Theater, and I don't know if you know in New York. If you don't, you can imagine these are very upscale, very rich neighborhoods. The Embassy Theater was on 59th Street and 1st Avenue. Then it opened at the Winter Garden at 58th Street and Broadway. And these are great houses, and it was everywhere else. They played it in as a matter of fact, does anyone know who Bob Fosse is? Does anyone know All That Jazz, the film? All that. Does anybody know Bob Fosse? He was a great choreographer. They did a film with who was in that film? The guy from the Shark movie, Roy Scheider was in the film, and he played Bob Fosse, and he did a story about his life, and then he died of a heart attack. Anyway, I'm in LA in the airport, and this guy comes running towards me, and he says, "Oh, Ken Foree, you're the greatest. I love you. You're my hero. What a performance! I took my girlfriend to see you in the Westchester, which is a rich suburb in upstate New York, drive-in." And so this film went everywhere. Everywhere. I was on PBS in Indianapolis, Indiana, when I went home to visit my mom. I was on radio shows, television shows. I mean, it exploded, and I didn't expect any of that. I thought I would be lucky enough just to get paid, get it over with, and this thing would play in South America somewhere. Well, it played all over America and all over the world, and it became a major hit and changed lives of a generation. And I expected none of that. In terms of, I think that answers that one question, does it not? Yes, okay. All right, so in terms of the character, I knew that in 1968 and then 1978, between those years, there was a lot of political unrest. I think the Kennedys had died. I think Watergate had happened. I think that had happened. Martin Luther King had died. There was all the riots were happening over in the United States. And I kind of took some of that and some of the, a few of the people that I knew who had been policemen who I had grown up with in my community. And I kind of, there was one individual, and you really, as an actor, you don't really want to tell them the tricks. You want to tell them the secrets of how you develop the role of the character. You got to keep that to yourself. And I don't really have to tell you, but I will. And there was a guy named Bruiser, strange name, Bruiser Gaines. And Bruiser Gaines was he was a mentor in my neighborhood. And all the kids, he taught them boxing, football. He was like the guy that, you guys have a neighborhood and you have that guy that is a tough guy, and he's one of the tough guys, and he's now a man, and then he has children, but he keeps investing into the community and into the children, and he raises them and he mentors them. Well, that's who Bruiser Gaines was, and he also was a policeman. So I kind of took some of Bruiser Gaines and what he was like as a man, and his demeanor, because his demeanor was take control, keep control, don't take any shit from anybody, and he had a kind of a stature. He led with his upper part of his body. He kind of had a high way of standing in his shoulders. If Bruiser stepped into this room, Bruiser was here. And so I kind of took some of that from Bruiser. I used a little bit of that. I used a little bit of what was happening in the country. Because as a matter of fact, I don't think Gaylen, Scott, or David, they may know it now because we've had some of these panels before, and I don't know if I mentioned it. But I started preparing for this role before we got on the plane to go to Pittsburgh. And when we got on the plane for Pittsburgh, I was so, I guess involved in being this character and the times. I sat on the other side of the plane away from them. You understand? And I kind of tried to separate myself, kind of isolate myself. And that was, no, I didn't. I didn't sit with anybody. I didn't sit with anybody. I sat on this side, you guys sat on that side. I didn't sit with anybody, purposely. And so that's how I prepared for the character. It just took a little bit of Bruiser Gaines, took a little bit of what was happening in society, and how a black man in America, in society, would react to that kind of situation. As you know, when I shot Wooly, they turned their guns all on me. You understand? And I'm a SWAT officer. And as you see things going, if they're asking Obama for his birth certificate, they certainly can turn their guns on me in 1988. So, there you go.
What was the question? Well, I have a little different take on this. I think everybody was very close to the characters that they played in the film. I think every one of them, I remember they were exactly the way they are now. Exactly. Yeah, I saw them and I saw the characters. I think I remember the plane ride over. I thought you were sitting quite close to Scotty, actually, the two of you, yeah. David Emge was behind me, and they all left me, the woman, alone. That's what I remember. And David Emge got sick, and he got sick in the plane. No, I think I know. It's exactly like the film. This is exactly the way it was. For me, I thought, yeah, I was very close to the character, but the one thing I felt strongly about was being the only woman among these three guys, and two, I didn't want to be a screamer. I didn't want to be, really, I don't respect the women running around in these films screaming. I think there was a time, especially, it was this film and Sigourney Weaver and Aliens, and we see a lot of role models now, Claire Danes in Homeland and other people, that we don't need women that are victims. So a lot of the scenes were, George, I think there was this scene in the airplane hangar or something where I'm being chased and I refused to scream. I think George actually dubbed in some screaming later, but I said no, and then George and I had a big talk about it, and I was really annoyed with all these guys. And he said, well, we have to do something about this in the script, and that's when he wrote the scene which was not in the original film, in the original script about, you know, I would have made you all breakfast, but I don't have my pots and pans. Because that came out of the reality that I felt about these guys, which was they were there and I was alone. So I think it was very much a part of what was happening among us. And I don't think that it was character driven as much as it was the actors meeting the characters in the film. And as far as the film, when it was released, I remember it being open in Times Square, which is quite different than the opening in the Upper East Side. It was a different kind of thing. But the premiere was in Times Square. Yeah, it was not on the Upper East Side, it was Times Square. Yeah. Well, it opened in different theaters, but it premiere. Yeah. Right. In Times Square. Close enough. Close enough. But the point.
It's been 35 years, guys.
My thinking about the film, though, is that the kind of elevation and the way you're talking about zombies now and Dawn of the Dead was absolutely not the way the film was perceived when it first opened. There were some critics who really liked it, like Roger Ebert, and most of them, many of them, didn't understand it. It came out with a no rating because it couldn't get a rating because of the violence. So it had a lot of problems in a lot of theaters, and for the legitimate theatrical world, it was considered not a real film. He was marginalized, and I think when we went out to agents and were perceived, it was like, what is this zombie film? People didn't understand zombies at the time. There was no idea of zombies. It was something like a horror film. So it was not, in many ways we were considered having not done a real film. It was that kind of feeling. And it was over the years, as Dawn of the Dead became a cult film, and it took on its own sort of history and legacy, and then started to generate other zombie films like Shaun of the Dead and The 28 Days and The Walking Dead, that this has created the legend that it became. But at the time, it was, people wouldn't go to see it. A lot of people wouldn't go to see the film. I mean, it was not that kind of popular cinema.
I lost a lot of friends because of this film in the beginning. Yeah. I mean, I was in an acting class, and I had some of my fellow actors come to see it. One was, oh my God, Brown, that thing, that series. What's her name? Oh, God. The newscasting people, what was it? I forget it. Anyway, one of the actors, he went on to do very well. But two of them came to see it, and they just looked at me and walked away. And I've never spoken to them again. My teacher came to see it and said, I don't think that this will show your true acting talents. There were other people who were also in the class who told me, oh, you were in that film. We did get, the strange thing about it, and that's why Richard and Solomon, I think they did a wonderful job, because we had that meeting, as you remember, on the East Side, Fifth Avenue. We had a meeting with all the press corps, with Rex Reed was there, I think Rona Barrett, there were a lot of the top press people, interviewers. They have their own shows. Cisco and Ebert, they're the tops in the nation, were at a meeting to meet us and to talk about the film, and they gave us very good reviews. They were, some of them were kind, some of them were just, it's a nice film, it's a good, if you like this kind of film, you know, this is for you. And they really could have canned us. But I did lose, I mean, there were a lot of people who, I got a lot of heat from them. As a matter of fact, on the premiere, just speaking about the premiere night, I got a woman from the New York Times cornered me And after the show, when we were having that little party, cornered me in the corner and said, well, how do you feel being involved in such a terrible, horrific, blood-lusting film as this piece of crap? It's New York Times reviewer. So, you know, I mean, we got a lot of heat. This film didn't just take off and everyone loved it. It took years and generations. And as you know, this has been passed down from people who are now in their 60s and 70s, have passed it down to people in their 30s and their grandchildren in their 20s. I have people, which I don't understand. I'm just going to say this one thing that happened. I don't understand this. People come to me at conventions or I meet them on film sets or something like that with their kids. And the kids are no older than, I would say 6, 7, some 5. And they say, they watch it all the time. I have them watch it, they've been watching it for years. And I just look at myself, and you can't really say, what kind of parent are you? What are you doing? Yes, you can. Well, I didn't. But I look at them, I look at them, I say, what? And I think to myself, why are you letting your child at 5 years old watch a film with so much gore and violence and that kind of thing? What kind of person does that? You know, and you know, I don't have an answer for it, and I don't hate them for it. I just think it's a mistaken judgment. So that's all I have to say.
I'm very sorry, our time is up for today. We will have another Q&A tomorrow. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.